again, Mark here from Talking Bass. This week we're looking at a different approach to creating lines and runs with basic scales. Now most of you will know how to construct some basic lines from a scale by just running around whatever pattern in a simple linear scalar fashion like this. And some of you might also know how to spice things up a little by adding some thirds and arpeggio movement in there. And those approaches are fine and make up a large amount of melodic material that we use in our vocabulary, but you can gain a whole other perspective on a scale by simply looking at some of the other intervals available in there, like the 4th, the 5th and the 6th. So let's take a basic scale that we can use throughout the lesson as an example, E Dorian. Now E Dorian sounds like a wacky mode to start with, but it's great for this demonstration because it contains an E minor pentatonic scale. And that's a really common scale that you'll probably all know, so the licks that we're going to cover are easily applied in a lot of common settings. So first we need to know an E Dorian. If you don't know the scale, I'll give you a quick primer, but bear in mind you can learn this and every other scale that you'll ever need in the Scale Essentials course over at Talking Bass. I'll put a link in the description below because I'm only going to give you a basic rundown of the scale in one octave. In Scale Essentials, you'll learn every scale over the entire fretboard. So check that out if you need some scale shedding. But anyway, here's a basic E Dorian scale. So what we've got here is E, F sharp and G, then A, B, C sharp, D and E. So up here, starting at the 7th fret of the A string, we have 7th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret. Then we move on to the D string and we have the 7th, 9th and 11th frets. And then we move up on to the G string and we have the 7th and 9th fret. Okay, so that's the scale. So E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, E. And in terms of the intervals in there, we've got the root note, major 2nd, minor 3rd, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, major 6th, minor 7th, and the octave there. So it's pretty much like a natural minor scale, but we've got the major 6th in there. That's C sharp, okay? So that's the E Dorian scale. For the fingering there, I'm starting on the 1st finger. So I've got 1st finger, 3rd finger, 4th finger, then 1st finger, 2nd finger, 4th finger, 1st finger, 3rd finger. So that's what you could call the 1st finger pattern, but you can also play this in several different positions. So we could start on the 2nd finger, which gives us a different pattern. So we could have E and F sharp, 7th fret, 9th fret on the A string, but then play the G here at the 5th fret of the D string with the 1st finger and work up G, A, B. So that's the 7th fret and 9th fret with the 2nd and 4th fingers, and then moving up onto the G string. So that's the C sharp there at the 6th fret of the G string, then the D, 7th fret, and the E at the 9th fret. So 7th fret, 9th fret, D string, 5th, 7th, 9th, G string, 6th, 7th and 9th fret. So that's a completely different pattern there by only just shifting the G and the C sharp down, and we're starting on the 2nd finger. And you could go one step further and start on the 4th finger, so that will give us the E there, 7th fret of the A string, then the F sharp, the G and the A there, 4th fret, 5th fret and 7th fret on the D string, then move up onto the G string where we can play the B, the C sharp and the D, so that's 4th fret, 6th fret and 7th fret. Can't get the octave there, so we have to move up one. So that's 3 separate ways of playing at an E Dorian scale, and you can use any of them for this particular lesson, you know, because we're going to be moving around a little with some of these intervals. But you really want to learn it over the entire fretboard. You don't want to just learn it, you know, just in that one octave. You also want to be able to move down, below, you know, all the way up the neck, you know, just everywhere, okay? So, and that's where Scale Essentials comes in useful. So that's an E Dorian scale, and yes, you can have lots of fun just running that scale in a linear fashion. You know, playing various different sequences there, or you could maybe play thirds through it. Or you could play arpeggios through it. You know, there's many, many different ways you can play with just seconds and thirds in terms of the intervals. But we can also run any type of interval through that scale. And today we're going to look at fourths, fifths, and sixths. So let's start by looking at some fourths. We'll start on a root note of E here at the 7th fret of the A string, and we're really going to be looking at 2 types of fourths in here, the perfect fourth and the augmented fourth. Now, The perfect fourth is a really simple pattern. We've just got the same fret on each the adjacent string. So if we've got an E there at the 7th fret of the A string, to find a perfect fourth, we just go to the 7th fret on the D string, and that's it. Okay, so you don't even have to think of any theory about that. That's your perfect fourth, okay? So same fret, next string. An augmented fourth, we just take that top note up a fret. So just think augment to get larger. We're just increasing the size of that measurement. So we've got E to the A sharp there. So that's 7th fret A string and then the 8th fret on the D string. That's an augmented fourth. Now I mentioned those two because those two intervals are there within that Dorian scale and a major scale and a Mixolydian scale and any of the modes of a major scale. So that's the two intervals that we're going to be looking at. So let's have a look at the fourths that we have in that E Dorian scale. So I'm going to use the first finger pattern for this because we're going to be working up. So we start on the E, and all we have to do is work up 4 notes of that scale. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's our fourth, okay? So it's the 4th scale degree there. So you can see there that that's our perfect fourth, okay? Then we move to the next note, the F sharp, at the 9th fret of the A string, and we work up another 4 notes of the scale. So we're still in E Dorian here, so we've got F sharp, G, A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So we see there, F sharp to the B. Again, it's another perfect fourth. Next, let's move to the G. This is going to be the 3rd of that E Dorian. So we've got G, work up 4 notes of the scale, G, A, B, and then C sharp. G to C sharp. You can see there, 10th fret of the A string to the 11th fret of the D string. That's the augmented fourth pattern, okay? So far in the E Dorian, we've got perfect fourth, augmented fourth, and then we just continue. So instead of just working through each one and wasting time, I'll just work through them, okay? Now, the only augmented fourth in there is that one starting on that 3rd degree, okay? The rest of them are all perfect fourth, okay? So there's just one augmented fourth in there starting on the 3rd. So we can work up A, B, C sharp, D, and E. So I've moved up the neck to do this, okay, on the D string, and the tab's all there. I've put it on screen, but you can also see this over at the website at talkingbass.net. So that's what we're looking to do. Just play these fourths starting on each degree of the scale. So perfect fourth, augmented fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, perfect fourth, and then eventually we get to the octave at the E. Again, we're on a perfect fourth, and you can continue working up, okay? So that's the fourths in E Dorian. Now, as I mentioned, we can run any interval through a scale, so 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. So let's have a look at the 5ths that we have in there. So again, there's going to be 2 5ths that we're going to be looking at. We're going to have the perfect 5th, which is that really popular, pattern you'll have played a million times before. So that's an E to B there if we started on the B. So that's 7th fret on the A string to the 9th fret on the D string. That's a perfect 5th. But we're also going to have a diminished 5th in there. So if we want a diminished 5th, we just take that top note, the B, and we drop it down a fret, which gives us B flat. Now you might have noticed already that diminished 5th pattern is exactly the same as an augmented 4th pattern, okay? They are different in, depending on context, but, in terms of a pattern, a fretboard pattern, they're exactly the same. So that's our diminished 5th, okay? Think diminished, get smaller, okay? The measurement there is smaller than the perfect 5th, okay? So, perfect 5th and diminished 5th. So let's work those through the Dorian scale. So if we start on the E, we work up 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. E, F sharp, G, A, B. We have a perfect 5th. Start on the F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got the C sharp. Again, a perfect 5th. Start on the G, the 3rd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That D there, which we can also play here. Again, a perfect 5th. So again, I'll just list them for you. So we have perfect 5th, perfect 5th, perfect 5th, perfect 5th from the 4th, perfect 5th from the 5th. But when we get to the 6th degree of the Dorian, we have, on that C sharp, we've got a diminished 5th. So on that 6th degree of the Dorian scale, we have a diminished 5th. And then for the 7th, another perfect 5th, and then we're back to the E. Okay, so that's the 5ths through that Dorian scale. And finally, let's try exactly the same thing, but with the sixth. So this time we're going to have two types of sixths. We're going to have the major sixth and the minor sixth. So if we measure them from that E there, so on the E, 7th fret of the A string, if we want a major sixth, that's going to be the C sharp there at the 6th fret of the G string. Okay, so kind of see that as a little bit like a major third pattern, but just, you know, the next string along. So that's a major sixth, and then for a minor sixth, we could either play there at the C natural. We just take that top note down one fret. That's the 5th fret of the G string. So major sixth, minor sixth. We could also play those here. The E up to the C sharp at the 11th fret of the D string. That's a major sixth. Or we could try it at the 10th fret of the D string for a minor sixth. So we've got two alternative fingerings for that, and it's always really handy to know two different fingerings for any one interval. You know, so if we take a perfect fifth, it's handy to know a perfect fifth like that, you know, that standard pattern that you'll all know. Or maybe taking it across two strings. Same notes, just different fingering. So let's run those sixths through the Dorian scale. So starting at the E there, 7th fret of the A string. First of all, let's work up 6 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to the C sharp. That's a major sixth pattern. Okay, so that's that characteristic scale step in the Dorian. So I could play it here at the 11th fret of the D string, or I could play it here at the 6th fret of the G string. I'll actually go for this one here at the 6th fret of the G string. So this time we're using the 2nd finger pattern. So there's the major sixth. Then we start on the F sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's F sharp up to that D. That's a minor sixth pattern. Okay, so major sixth, minor sixth. Then we can go to the 3rd, the G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a major sixth. Okay. Then we move up to the next note, the A. A major sixth. Then up to the 5th, the B. We've got a minor sixth. Then up to the C sharp. We've got a minor sixth up to the D, major sixth, and then finally we're back at the E with a major sixth. Okay, so this is all listed, so you can just work through them in turn. But you know, this is really, really useful information. It really gets you to know a scale. Okay, seeing all of the different intervals that we have in there. So major sixth, minor sixth, major sixth, major sixth, minor sixth, minor sixth, major sixth, and then up to the major sixth. Okay, so that's the sixths through an E Dorian scale. Now, as I mentioned, you really need to know a scale over the entire fretboard, and that's way outside the scope of this lesson. But once you can do that, and you can see that Dorian scale, you know, all over the neck, you can also start to see those intervals all over the place. So, instead of just seeing them all in that area, you need to know that if you're playing here and you move down, you know, move down to the 7th, you've got that major sixth there, and then if you went down to the 6th, you've got a minor sixth. You know, you need to know all of the sixths in there all around on the neck, which is going to take a bit of practice, but once you can do that, you can start to incorporate them in your lines. So to demonstrate how we can use these intervals in our playing, let's look at a basic riff in E minor using E Dorian as the parent scale, and we'll look at 3 different fills, one using fourths, one using fifths, and one using sixths. So first of all, let's have a look at the riff. So this is going to be a 4-bar riff, and on the 4th bar, we're going to put our fills in there. So here's the riff first of all. So this riff is obviously based on an E Dorian scale, and it's made up of 2 little sections. So for the first one we have, okay, so we start on an open E string, then we move up to the A 7th fret of the D string, play that twice, then down to the G 5th fret of the D string, then down to the E at the 7th fret of the A string. Then we go back up to the G at the 5th fret of the D string, play that twice, and then down E, D, B. So 7th fret, 5th fret A string, 7th fret on the E string, and that's that first part. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. For the second part of the riff, we have the same rhythm, but just a few different notes. So again, we start on the open E, Then we move up to the 7th there, the D, so that's the 7th fret of the G string. So we have twice on the D, then down to the C sharp, 6th fret of the G string, that's that characteristic Dorian Scale step in there. Then down to the A, 7th fret of the D string. And then back up to the C sharp, played twice, so that's 6th fret of the G string. And then we come down A, G, E. So 7th fret, 5th fret D string, 7th fret on the A string. Okay, so pretty much the same pattern that we played here, but starting on the 7th there, the D. Okay, and that's the whole riff. So we just put those two together, giving us 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. So that riff isn't the easiest one in the world, so you'll need to practice that for a while first to get that down, because, you know, the fills are going to be quite tricky as well, and you don't want to be worrying about the riff, you know, when you're trying to put the fills in. So practice that round and round slowly until you've got it under your fingers, and try it with the track over at Talkingbass. So for the first fill, we're going to be using some fourths. So the fill sounds like this. Okay, so it might sound a little bit odd, but it's just using all of those fourths that we looked at in the previous exercise. But we are moving down a little. So we begin on a D, 5th fret of the A string. So this is the 7th degree of the Dorian. So, and then we come up a perfect fourth, up to the G. So 5th fret A string, 5th fret D string. Okay? Then we move up to the root note, the E, and we play 3 consecutive perfect fifths. So we've got E, A, and D. So all 7th fret. So 7th fret A string, 7th fret D string, 7th fret on the G string. Okay, so I'm just using the index finger for both of those. So, you know, because you don't want any chords kind of ringing out with this, you have to kind of use a bit of a lever action with the with that first finger. Okay. Now for the next part, we're coming down some fourths. So we move up to the E, the top E there, 9th fret of the G string, and we come down just 9th fret, 9th fret, 9th fret, 9th fret. Okay, so, and I'm using the 3rd finger there to come down. So I'm kind of barring with it and kind of using, again, a lever rolling action. And I start with the 2nd finger on that one in terms of picking, and then I rake down. Okay? Just try that really slowly, because this can be quite odd if you're not used to playing fourths in this way. So it's got a real modern kind of sound, but it's just using an E Dorian scale. So then we move down to the E again, 7th fret of the A string, and we play a perfect fifth, perfect fourth. So we're up to the A again. And then we move down to the G, 5th fret of the D string, and come down 3 consecutive perfect fourths. So 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret, okay? D string, A string, E string. So all together we have. And then I just, from that low A, the 5th fret there on the E string, I just play up to the B there, just a hammer on from 5th fret to the 7th fret, and then the same again on the on the A string, 5th fret to the 7th fret. You know, very stereotypical kind of rock line there. So, and that's the whole fill. Okay, so it'll take a little bit of doing to get it under your fingers, but once you do, you know, it'll do your technique a world of good, because trying to move through these, it's quite odd, you know, you can get finger twisted on both hands, and you've got to kind of get used to this lever action. But again, really good for your technique, and it sounds very different. It doesn't just sound like, you know, like a standard E Dorian scale. You know, it's got a different sound. So practice that really, really slowly until you get it down, and then you can try with the track. So I'm going to be putting these fills on that 4th bar, so it'll sound like this. For the second fill, we're using 5ths, and it sounds like this. Okay, so again, very distinctive sound, but it's just using the 5ths that we looked at in the Dorian scale. So we start up here at the F sharp 11th fret of the G string, and then we move down to the B at the 9th fret of the D string. So that's our little perfect 5th pattern there. So we play the perfect 5th, starting on the top note, and then we play the open D string. Now the open D string isn't there anything to do with these perfect 5ths or anything like that. It's just pretty much a ghost note and a bit of a lever with a kind of pedal point action so that we can get down through the intervals a little easier. So, and it gives it a bit of a distinctive sound. So we've got F sharp, B, open D. Then we take that perfect 5th pattern and we take it down a whole step. So this time we have E to A. So 9th fret G string, 7th fret D string, and then open D again. So then we take that perfect 5th pattern down another whole step. So we're going to be on the G this time. So we start on the D string. So we play 3 notes this time. So G, 5th fret of the D string, up to D, 7th fret of the G string, and back. Okay, so there's our perfect 5th, and then the open D. So first 2 times we're on the high note first, and then on this last time, it's low, high, low. Okay, so cool little line there, okay? Once we've made that descent, we move down to the D, 5th fret of the A string, and we play another perfect 5th there up to the A. So 5th fret A string, 7th fret D string. Then we play the D again, 5th fret of the A string, and slide up to the F sharp, 9th fret of the A string. Then we have the perfect 5th there up to the C sharp at the 11th fret of the D string and back. Okay, so F sharp, C sharp, F sharp. And then we're down to the open E. So okay, so like I said, very distinctive sound. So all I'm doing here is taking those perfect 5th intervals that we saw in the E Dorian scale and then just making lines with them. And when you do that, you do get these very distinctive kind of sounds. So, you know, you can see them. If you've practiced them, you know, through the scale, you can just move around with them. Just, you know, experiment, see what kind of sounds you can get. So start out really, really slow with this one and then just gradually build up speed, and you can try with the track. One last tip for playing that fill with the riff: once you get to that 3rd bar, instead of moving all the way down to the B, just go down as far as the E, and that'll give you a little bit of time to move the hand for the fill there. So when I play it, okay. Finally, for our 3rd fill, we're going to be using some 6ths. So here's the fill. Okay, again, a very distinctive sound. So we begin with a major 6th pattern on the A, so this is below that root note that we were playing. So 5th fret of the E string, and we've got the major 6th up there, F sharp, 4th fret of the D string. That's our major 6th pattern. And we're starting on the top note, so we're starting on the F sharp. So 4th fret D string down to 5th fret on the E string. Now, it's important to be aware before we move into the next part, the fingering of the fretting hand. So we're starting with the first finger, the index finger, and then I'm using the third finger, or the ring finger, for the E string, for that A. Now it might seem a little bit odd playing, just between 2 frets with those 2 fingers, but it makes more sense when we move up into this next interval. So trust me, you'll thank me for it later. So we've got the descent on the major 6th, and then we slide up to the B 7th fret of the E string, and then we play a minor 6th, so that's the G 5th fret of the D string. And that's why that third finger, the ring finger, comes in handy. Then we go back down to that B 7th fret of the E string and move up to the C sharp at the 9th fret of the E string, and then play another minor 6th pattern. So this is going to be the A at the 7th fret of the D string. And then back down to that C sharp 9th fret of the E string. So you want to get that bit down first, because that can be a little bit of a finger buster when you first start out, especially to get it in time. And some of these patterns, if you're not used to playing 6, could just seem a little bit unfamiliar, and so it can be quite hard to memorize them when you're not used to them. But the more that you play them, the more you'll get used to them, and it'll absorb into your vocabulary a lot easier. For the final part of that line, we move up onto the A and the G string. So we start up on the D 7th fret of the G string and drop down to the F sharp at the 9th fret of the A string. So that's our minor 6th pattern on the 2nd degree of the Dorian. So then we move down a note, down to the C sharp 6th fret of the G string, down to the E 7th fret of the A string. So that's our major 6th on the root note there. And then we just slide up to the G at the 10th fret of the A string and play the major 6 there, so that's the E at the 9th fret of the G string, and back down to the G 10th fret of the A string. So that's that second part of the fill. Okay, so all 6ths taken from that Dorian scale. So practice that part separately so you get used to that move. So once you've nailed both of those parts, you can try putting them together. So again, starting at the F sharp there, 4th fret of the D string. So there's a lot of string skipping going on here. So that's why you should start out really, really slowly with this, as slow as it takes. Until you've got it up to speed. Okay? So once you have that under your fingers, you can try it with the riff. And like I said, try this really, really slowly. So 3, 4. So even at that slow tempo, the fill can, be a bit of a finger buster if you're not used to it. But, persevere, play it as slow as you need to, and then build up speed. So finally, with the track. Okay, so that should give you some food for thought in coming up with some interesting sounds by way of these different intervals. Remember to like the video, comment, subscribe, and visit the Talkingbass website to check out all the lesson material and hundreds more free bass lessons on every topic. Okay, I'll see you next week.